decades, the United States and Canada have worked together as key trade partners, ensuring a smooth supply chain for automakers. But now, a shocking move by Canada is shaking the foundation of the American auto sector, threatening jobs, skyrocketing prices, and sending the industry into chaos. Factories are at risk of shutting down, electric vehicle production is facing a nightmare, and the entire market is holding its breath. So, what exactly is happening? Why did Canada take such a bold step? And most importantly, what does this mean for you as a consumer? Stick with me, because this crisis could change the way cars are built and bought in North America forever. Is this the start of a new era? Most people assume trade wars come from faraway places like East Asia. But what if the biggest threat is sitting right next door? For many years, the relationship between these two nations seemed nearly unbreakable. Cross-border trade flowed smoothly, generating prosperity and stable employment on both sides. Then, one policy shift changed the tone overnight. A dispute that might have remained a minor disagreement instead spiraled into a far-reaching standoff. The question is, why did everything escalate so drastically this time? One crucial factor is that each side chose a targeted path. The United States of America pursued a new tariff aimed at protecting certain domestic industries, while Canada responded with calculated precision. This was not a typical retaliatory measure filled with broad strokes. Instead, officials north of the border drew a bullseye on specific sectors, pinpointing where economic and political pain would cut deepest. Nothing about this was haphazard or impulsive. What does this mean for the future of trade? The short answer is upheaval. Suddenly, businesses on both sides are questioning the stability they once took for granted, as analysts scramble to predict long-term consequences. One fact stands out: the automotive sector is in the crosshairs, and it is about to get worse. And this is just the start. The auto industry is about to feel the full force of Canada's retaliation, Canada's precision strike. Why it's so effective. Canada did not just retaliate, it targeted the exact nerve centers of the American economy. That description might sound dramatic, but it perfectly encapsulates what has happened. Rather than imposing sweeping barriers on all imports, Canadian leaders zeroed in on industries they believed would have the greatest ripple effect. By focusing on core manufacturing supplies and strategically important regions, they put their neighbor under maximum pressure. Front and center in this targeting is the car and truck sector, which serves as the backbone for numerous Midwestern and Southern states. By attaching tariffs to steel, aluminum, and various automotive components, Canada has made it more expensive for American factories to keep pace. Suddenly, businesses face the dilemma of absorbing higher costs or passing them along to consumers, potentially pushing new vehicle prices even higher. On a political level, this approach is equally shrewd. By singling out areas essential to certain voter blocs, Canada sends a potent message to lawmakers in the United States of America. When constituents start complaining about job losses or price hikes, those same lawmakers will press for a negotiation. At the same time, Canada has taken care not to alienate other regions where alliances might be necessary in future deals. And the biggest victim of all? Tesla. Here is why. Tesla's nightmare. The electric vehicle industry in crisis. Tesla's greatest strength, its intricately balanced supply chain, just became its most glaring vulnerability. That phrase may appear sensational, but it is accurate. The pioneering electric vehicle company depends heavily on raw materials from Canada, including nickel, lithium, and aluminum. These metals power battery packs and other critical components. When sudden tariffs or export restrictions disrupt that flow, the chain reaction can be devastating. While older automakers might have some alternatives available, Tesla's production model thrives on efficiency and rapid scaling. The moment any link weakens, the entire structure threatens to collapse. Manufacturing lines could slow, causing financial concerns for the company's investors and casting doubt on future product rollouts. Meanwhile, other electric vehicle producers, including traditional giants such as Ford and General Motors, also rely on Canadian resources, though they may maintain more diversified portfolios. Yet the cumulative effect remains clear. The entire electric vehicle market is now at risk of significant delays, rising costs, and potential customer hesitancy. Ironically, this upheaval comes at a time when electric vehicles were poised to become the next big shift in transportation. But this crisis does not stop at electric cars. It is about to hit the entire auto landscape, the auto industry's breaking point. Most people do not realize how deeply entwined United States of America-Canada car production really is. From drivetrains assembled in one place to transmissions built across the border, A single automobile's various components can cross national lines multiple times before it rolls off the assembly line. This intricate dance has thrived for decades under a regime of comparatively open trade relations. All it takes is one major tariff to disrupt the entire system, adding costs at every turn. When suppliers suddenly pay more for raw materials, factories must decide whether to cut workforce hours or pass the extra burden on to dealerships. Those dealerships, in turn, might raise sticker prices, leaving potential buyers with sticker shock. In communities reliant on the automotive sector, any drop in production can lead to lower consumer spending, impacting everything from local diners to real estate values. Think of it like a giant puzzle. Remove one critical piece, and the entire structure becomes unstable. That is what economists warn could happen if this standoff lasts too long. The fallout ranges from layoffs of highly skilled production workers to potential shutdowns of plants that cannot adapt quickly enough. And once consumer confidence declines, even those individuals who can still afford new vehicles might choose to delay big purchases, creating a downward spiral. If you think car prices are already high, you will be stunned by what is coming next. Economists fear a knock-on effect extending into financing options. As vehicles grow more expensive to produce, lenders may heighten interest rates to compensate for added risk. Insurance premiums could rise in tandem, reflecting the spike in replacement costs. Each step compounds the burden on consumers, threatening viability of one of North America's largest economic engines. When all these factors converge, the auto industry stands on the brink of a shift. How this trade war is destroying American jobs. Ironically, tariffs that were meant to revive manufacturing within the United States may now be the reason jobs are disappearing. Each time a new fee is added to metals, automotive components, or other industrial materials from Canada, the cost for American factories increases. Managers who once planned to expand production lines are instead scaling back operations. They face soaring expenses on raw materials that were once reliably affordable, making it almost impossible to maintain the same workforce. Some facilities see no choice but to close entire departments, sending shockwaves through surrounding communities. The repercussions travel far beyond the assembly floor. Trucking companies lose revenue when production slows and fewer materials need to be transported. Suppliers that specialized in niche parts for automobiles notice a dramatic drop in orders, forcing them to reduce their own payrolls. Local shops and restaurants near industrial parks see fewer customers on weekdays as factory workers stay home, uncertain of their future income. Economists note that when one factory cuts positions, multiple support businesses in the region are also dragged down. Adding to the uncertainty is the confusion among workers who feel the impact of the shifting rules. Many wonder if the products they help create will suddenly become too expensive to sell, leading to further reductions. There is frustration and anxiety among entire neighborhoods that once relied on steady wages from the automotive supply chain. Government assistance can only do so much, and labor unions struggle to protect jobs that are vanishing as raw materials become unaffordable. At the core of this crisis is a policy approach that appeared strong on paper, but may be pushing the American workforce to the brink. Car prices are about to skyrocket. If there was ever a time to purchase a new or used car, that time may be now. With rising duties on key Canadian metals and components, automobile manufacturers face mounting costs at nearly every step of production. From steel frames to aluminum body panels, every increment in tariff eventually shows up on the dealership sticker. Some buyers already find themselves priced out of vehicles that, until recently, were within financial reach. The result is a car market that is slowly slipping away from average earners. The used car sector provides no escape from the turmoil. When new car prices become prohibitively high, many shoppers turn to pre-owned models, putting sudden pressure on the limited supply of second-hand vehicles. Demand rises, but supply does not keep up, causing prices to climb on older models as well. Loan interest rates begin to reflect this competitive environment, adding yet another barrier for consumers who need a reliable ride for work or daily life. No matter the price range, the financing environment is likely to become more challenging. Automobile lenders see the risks of a market under stress and often adjust their terms accordingly. Larger down payments, higher monthly rates, and stricter credit requirements become standard as the trade conflict drags on. This leaves countless families weighing whether they can justify that new minivan or fuel-efficient sedan. Many are reluctant to take on debt when jobs feel precarious. For the auto industry itself, fewer sales mean more uncertainty for the future. The bigger picture, how this crisis will hit your wallet. It is not merely about cars. This particular trade conflict extends to nearly every corner of the economy, especially in households that depend on goods containing Canadian metals or components. Appliances, electronics, and countless other items involve at least some cross-border supply. Each bump in cost moves up the chain until it lands in retail stores, forcing shoppers to pay more for products that were once seen as reasonable purchases. Small businesses feel this pain most acutely. Family-owned manufacturers, craftspeople, and local retailers rarely have the financial cushion to absorb higher input prices. They either pass those costs to customers or risk operating at a loss. Unfortunately, higher prices can drive away buyers who may already be dealing with increased food expenses and rent. It becomes a cycle of rising bills that erodes disposable income. Alongside the direct impact on goods, there is also a risk of more widespread inflation. When materials cost more and businesses across multiple industries raise prices, consumers begin to spend more of their monthly earnings on fewer essentials. Families that used to feel relatively secure can find themselves making tough choices on what to prioritize. Worry about these trends affects consumer confidence, which then curbs spending further. And Canada still has one last trump card that could bring the United States to its knees. Canada's last resort. Could energy be next? Imagine the effect of doubled prices for gasoline. If Canada decided to restrict or heavily tax its oil exports to the United States. Canada happens to be one of the largest external sources of oil and natural gas for its southern neighbor, and it also provides a considerable amount of electricity to certain northern states. If these flows were disrupted, the resulting economic blow would dwarf the troubles already caused by automotive tariffs. Truck fleets across the country would struggle to remain profitable if fuel costs spiraled out of control. Food and goods transport might become less frequent, driving supermarket costs upward. Several regions depend on Canadian hydroelectric power to keep lights on and factories running. If that supply were reduced or priced at a prohibitive level, energy bills in those areas could soar. Power outages or rationed electricity might become harsh realities that change daily life. Businesses that rely on continuous electricity might cut hours or limit operations. Households could be left with energy bills that chip away at the family budget. These domino effects would reach much deeper than higher car prices, affecting nearly every person's day-to-day routine. Observers warn that this form of retaliation is a last resort. For now, Canada seems more interested in pressing its advantage in other sectors, but the knowledge that it holds such powerful leverage keeps the United States from ignoring its northern partner. What began as a seemingly narrow trade argument has grown into a far-reaching conflict that touches jobs, daily expenses, and even fundamental resources. Meanwhile, other countries watch closely, recognizing that a major reordering of trade relationships is underway. Some seek to fill the vacuum, while others worry they may be the next target. In every corner of the American economy, there is a sense that the fallout from this standoff will be felt for a very long time. The global shockwave. Why this trade war is spreading. What began as a bilateral feud is now remolding global alliances in unforeseen ways. When Canada and the United States first imposed trade penalties on each other, most observers assumed it would remain an isolated disagreement. Instead, it has provoked a chain reaction across major economic regions. European Union leaders are revisiting their commercial relationships, mindful that disruptions in North American automobile parts or raw materials could derail assembly lines in Europe as well. Manufacturers in Germany and France are working on contingencies to prevent supply shortages, sending researchers to alternative markets in South America and Southeast Asia. Countries in Asia are also seizing the moment. Japan and South Korea, both reliant on stable supply chains with the United States, are quietly exploring backup options in case American and Canadian exports grow too costly. Meanwhile, emerging economies are positioning themselves as new hubs for automotive components, hoping to attract corporations eager to avoid high tariffs or political uncertainty. This maneuvering creates a complex patchwork of shifting relationships, with nations jockeying to become indispensable partners in global trade. In the midst of this upheaval, Some states see an opportunity to fill gaps left by escalating costs between Canada and the United States. They are offering cheaper labor, more flexible trade agreements, and fewer political obstacles. This environment favors quick, decisive action from any government willing to forge deals that secure long-term economic advantages. One superpower in particular is capitalizing on the moment and laying groundwork for a far-reaching strategy. China's strategic play is the United States losing its auto industry. While the United States is locked in a showdown with Canada, China is forging critical resource agreements that could undermine North American auto production. For many years, Chinese conglomerates have been scouting global partners to guarantee access to essential metals, including lithium and rare earth elements needed for electric vehicle batteries. By deepening ties with Canadian suppliers, China not only strengthens its own automotive ambitions, but also weakens the United States' position in the emerging zero-emission market. A growing concern is that American carmakers may lose permanent access to these key materials. In the past, producers could rely on predictable trade deals across the northern border, but now the climate has changed. China's diplomatic approach often involves large-scale investments, favorable loan terms, and infrastructure support. This can be irresistible for nations or companies looking to diversify away from tense relations with the United States. As a result, Canada might see fewer incentives to maintain old partnerships and more reasons to prioritize lucrative deals with Chinese firms. If China successfully locks down these resources, American automakers could face escalating prices or diminished supply. The implications go beyond the immediate struggle between the United States and Canada. With global competition in the electric vehicle sector heating up, any disruption to raw materials can tip the balance. Meanwhile, the trade dispute has taken on a life of its own, evolving into a far-reaching confrontation that extends past economics into the heart of political power struggles. The political fallout, elections, policies, and the fight for power. Trade wars have the power to influence elections, and this standoff between Canada and the United States may prove it once again. Lawmakers in Washington, faced with angry voters in manufacturing-heavy districts, are divided on the best course of action. Some favor tough negotiations, arguing that a strong stance forces trading partners to concede on important points. Others caution that these tactics risk alienating allies and worsening job losses at home. As factories scale back or even close, those constituents are voicing frustration at politicians who promised economic revival. Meanwhile, in Canada, officials are rallying public support by portraying the conflict as a battle for national dignity. The stance that Ottawa has taken resonates with citizens who believe their country is standing firm against outside pressure. This dynamic has boosted certain political figures, while also creating tension within regions dependent on export revenues. News outlets continue to track every development, showcasing the personal stories of laid-off workers, anxious business owners, and automobile dealers coping with declining inventory. Public sentiment weaves into campaign narratives, with candidates on all sides using the dispute to highlight either resilience or failures of diplomacy. Supporters of aggressive tariffs promise a better future once trade imbalances are corrected, whereas critics say these measures do little but hurt working families and tarnish relationships with critical neighbors. As each day passes, officials scramble to propose last-minute deals or partial compromises. The clock is ticking, and citizens want real solutions to ease financial pressures and secure job opportunities. Whether a comprehensive agreement emerges soon or not, the underlying stakes have grown beyond local factories and are now part of a broader power struggle that may define the political arena for many years to come. The auto industry's uncertain future. This dispute could permanently transform how cars are built and where crucial components are sourced. Until recently, vehicle production across North America depended on a seamless border flow of aluminum, steel, and specialized electronics. Now, tariffs and retaliatory measures are raising existential questions. Some automakers might relocate factories to nations that offer greater stability, avoiding the roller coaster of shifting policies. Others could pivot to alternate supply chains in Latin America or Southeast Asia. Though such moves are expensive and time-consuming, companies are wary of relying solely on uncertain North American routes. Three distinct possibilities have emerged. The first scenario envisions a short-term truce, where both sides reduce tariffs enough to appease manufacturers and workers. However, confidence in cross-border partnerships could remain shaken. prompting cautious re-evaluations of long-term contracts. The second scenario foresees no immediate resolution, with tensions leading to drawn-out attrition that raises prices for suppliers, buyers, and ultimately car owners. The final scenario is a radical transformation in which global players like China fill the vacuum, forging deals that leave American firms struggling to maintain a foothold in their own backyard. Drivers, mechanics, and entire local economies revolve around automotive production, so the consequences of this conflict are not contained to a handful of corporation boardrooms. They reach into daily life, affecting paychecks and retail markets, altering the map of future assembly lines, and even shaping foreign alliances. Anyone who believes this dispute concerns only the automobile industry should look deeper, because cracks in manufacturing can ripple out into every sector that depends on healthy trade networks. The question remains whether leadership on both sides will find a workable compromise, or if the crisis will push North American manufacturing to a turning point that will be felt for generations. The decline of manufacturing in the United States, a long time coming. The ongoing trade war may seem like the cause of the crisis, but in reality it is just exposing a long-standing problem. For decades, manufacturing in the United States has been in steady decline. While many assume that a strong economy and new technologies would keep the industrial sector afloat, the truth is that it has been eroding for years. The effects of offshoring, automation, and lack of investment in domestic production have led to the fragile situation that exists today. One of the biggest factors behind this decline is the outsourcing of jobs to countries where labor costs are significantly lower. Companies have long sought to maximize profits by shifting production overseas, leaving behind once thriving industrial cities. While this may have benefited corporate balance sheets in the short term, the long-term consequences are now coming to light. The reliance on foreign manufacturing has left industries vulnerable to trade disruptions, supply chain breakdowns, and economic shifts beyond their control. Automation has also played a significant role in reshaping the manufacturing landscape. As companies embraced advanced robotics and artificial intelligence, many jobs that once supported middle-class workers disappeared. The efficiency gains were undeniable, but they came at the cost of employment opportunities for millions of people. The shift to automated production lines has created a workforce crisis, leaving many workers without the skills needed to compete in a rapidly evolving job market. Beyond job losses, another major issue has been the failure to modernize domestic manufacturing facilities. While other countries have invested in cutting-edge production techniques and infrastructure, the United States has lagged behind. Many plants have struggled to keep up with international competitors, making it even more difficult to justify keeping production within the country. Without strong government incentives or corporate commitment to revitalizing the sector, the decline has only accelerated. The result of these combined issues is an industry that is now struggling to withstand the pressures of economic uncertainty. The trade war has intensified these problems, but the cracks were already there. The question now is not whether the United States manufacturing sector is in trouble, but whether it can recover before irreversible damage is done. Can the United States reverse the damage? Despite the challenges, there is still a path forward. The decline of manufacturing in the United States is not necessarily permanent, but reversing it will require a coordinated effort from both policymakers and industry leaders. The solution is not as simple as bringing jobs back from overseas. It will require structural changes that make domestic production competitive again. One of the most effective ways to revitalize the sector is through strategic government intervention. Targeted incentives for companies that choose to manufacture domestically can make a significant difference. Tax breaks, subsidies for new factories, and research grants for innovation in automation and clean manufacturing could help level the playing field. If production in the United States becomes more cost-effective, companies will have a greater incentive to invest in local facilities rather than outsourcing. A renewed focus on workforce development is also critical. The shift toward automation does not have to mean the end of manufacturing jobs. It simply requires a different approach. Training programs focused on advanced manufacturing skills, robotics, and engineering could prepare workers for the jobs of the future rather than leaving them behind. Strengthening vocational education and creating partnerships between companies and technical schools could help bridge the growing skills gap. Trade policies will also need to evolve. The current approach of imposing tariffs and retaliatory measures has proven to be disruptive rather than constructive. Instead of focusing solely on protectionism, the United States must negotiate trade agreements that balance fair competition with domestic industry support, strengthening partnerships with allied nations, while reducing dependency on any single country could provide stability for manufacturers. without the risk of economic retaliation. Technology will inevitably play a major role in shaping the future of the industry. Emerging sectors such as electric vehicle production, semiconductor manufacturing, and sustainable energy technology offer new opportunities for growth. Investing in these fields could help rebuild the manufacturing base in a way that aligns with modern economic trends rather than attempting to restore outdated models. But what's your perspective on this? Let's talk in the comments. Thanks for watching.